Take it away, Jeff.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff Weinberg with Caregiver Champion, and we've been doing a series of videos that highlight people that have been important in the field. And today I actually have the most important person that I've ever had in the field. She happens to be a colleague of mine, and she's a wonderful person. And her name is Marla Turnbull. And unfortunately, she does some amazing things when she works, but this is sort of a tragic event that happened in her life. And we're going to pass it on to Marla and to Rachel and see what we can find out.
Hey, Marla. Thanks for joining us today. I want to start off by getting a little bit about your background. Can you share with us?
Sure. I'm married to my husband of, it'll be 33 years this year, and 3 married children and 3 grandchildren. And this month I turned 55. I never thought.
For those who don't know you, what is your job title? What is it that you do?
Well, I was a former practice manager with UPMC, and I'm a certified health and nutrition coach and a patient advocate since January with Jeff Weinberg and Caregiver Champion. Also a member with the National Aging in Place Council.
Amazing. So I understand that you got an infection and it became very serious, and you have a background story. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what happened?
Sure. I was working with Jeff, just started, and began developed back pain in January of this year. And just, I've always had back pain, so I didn't think anything of it. But toward the end of February, so it developed in early February, I would say, back pain. And then at the end of February, my daughter took me to the hospital, the emergency room, and they diagnosed me with degenerative back disease. Didn't do a urinalysis or anything. We did tell them that I was having fever and chills. They still sent me home with muscle relaxant and pain medicine. And that was on Saturday. Followed up with the orthopedic doctor, who was the head doctor, orthopedic doctor at St. Margaret's Hospital. And he did another x-ray, sent me home with degenerative back disease. Friday, we were going away to meet my youngest daughter halfway to celebrate my oldest daughter, her 30th birthday. And we met in lower part of West Virginia. And I was having mental issues, confusion, and my husband noticed it. He consulted with my daughter-in-law, who's an RN, and she said, well, keep an eye on it. Have her go. If she can do the trip, have her go. So I took the 4-hour trip down to West Virginia, slept all the way, got there, crawled in bed. And when I woke up, I didn't know where I was. I was looking for the bathroom, very confused, and very fatigued and tired. So my husband said, get your shoes on, we're going to the emergency room. Drove 30 minutes away to Beckley, West Virginia. And when they were checking me in, I wasn't answering the questions right, and my husband had to answer and be my advocate. I don't remember the next 2 days. So they whisked me into ICU and started their testing. They found out I had a UTI. I was in septic shock, which meant that that infection went to my bloodstream. They did a spinal tap, which showed bacterial meningitis. They found I had echocarditis, which is infection on my mitral valve. It showed 1.7 centimeters on my mitral valve. I was having many strokes and brain bleeds due to that bacteria breaking off and going to my brain. And they found a DVT, which is a blood clot in my leg. I was in Beckley, West Virginia for 7 days. They did all kinds of testing on my heart, my brain, CT scans, sonograms, CAT scans. They put a camera down my throat to look at my heart, that mitral valve, to make sure everything was going well. I started to respond to the antibiotic that they had me on. They tried several, and I was in isolation because of the bacterial meningitis. Did all that testing to get me to a level where my hope was to get to UPMC. And since I was in the ICU, they kept trying to get me into the ICU at Presby Montefiore, and they had no room. So I just sat in West Virginia for 2 days until a room opened up. Got in the ambulance, went the 4 hours, and finally got to Montefiore, Presby Montefiore, and checked in, and they did every single test again, and then some. They did heart scans, Dopplers, CT, MRIs. They have the longest MRI I think they can do. They did an MRI from head to toe. It was 2.5 hours. Went through a lot of testing, x-rays, blood work. But when I got to UPMC and they continued the antibiotic, they found I had no more brain bleeds, and the bacteria on the mitral valve decreased from 1.7 centimeters to 1.2 centimeters. I had an infection in my hip. They had to drain some of that infection in one pocket. The other pocket they kind of let go to see how it would heal with the antibiotic. I had inflammation, infection in my lower back and my neck. And I knew that was very, very critical because my sister is a quadriplegic now after having sepsis in her neck, and they didn't diagnose it quickly enough. So that was on my thoughts that we needed to get this healed. They put me on Coumadin because I had the DVT, the blood clot, and then I was in Presby for 18 days. As they were getting me ready to discharge, they put a PICC line in, so I would continue the antibiotic for an additional, actually it was 12 weeks total. I had the PICC line on, administering 24-hour, round-the-clock antibiotics. I was sent home on March 18th, and our shutdown was March 16th, so they were preparing for the COVID onslaught. They were preparing lots of patients to come in, so that I got out just in time. I had weekly visits from the home health nurse where she would change the lines and do blood work. I would daily put the medicine, the heparin and the saline solution in every day, which I was still very mentally confused. So I was worried that I would know how to do that correctly. But I had a good support system. My husband, my children, which are wonderful at videoing and the technology end of it. So if we met with a doctor, they would videotape that session in the hospital or on the phone, and then play it back to me. When I met with the home health nurse, she showed me how to put the solution in the PICC line and how to do all that. They videotaped it so I could go back and revisit it. That was huge because in my mind, I couldn't get the steps down. I was still very fatigued, which this week I just went back to work. It was my first week back, and I'm doing so much better.
Congratulations.
I had
Hey, I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I didn't explain why I'm not in the picture. She probably misses me anyhow, so it doesn't matter. I'm tired looking at my face, but first of all, I think that what you said about videotaping, Marla, that's something that almost everybody should do. Because whether you're ill or where you were very seriously ill, that's something that most people, once they're shown, they don't remember all those steps. And I think that's a tremendous tip that we can pass on to our viewers, because that's just so important.
Yes.
The other thing is, emotionally, how did you deal with all this?
Of course, we were in the shutdown, so I was home. Everybody was home. I didn't have to call off work, so to speak. So that was a blessing. Emotionally, I had a big, huge support system through my church. They began to pray and pray and pray through every step. And I would have my husband do an email or my children do emails to alert people, and they would check up on me, which was kind of hard for me because I wasn't used to all the stimulation. When you're at that point where you're trying to get your memory back, I remember texting people or saying, I just can't talk right now. I'm really tired and I'm emotionally drained. And they didn't understand the length of time it was taking me to get better. They thought, oh, she's out of the hospital, she's better. Well, no, that was half of the journey. I still had the other half of the journey to complete. So getting back into the swing of things, it took me a long time. I do say I'm much more patient. I've learned how to be patient, and things that are not in my control, I just have to pray about and accept it and give it over to God to help me through it. It was very hard, especially the setback when I went for my second to last MRI. This was to diagnose me that my back infection and neck infection were gone so I could get off this PICC line. Well, that MRI didn't come back changed very much. So I couldn't go off the PICC line. I wasn't released from infectious disease doctor. And that was a real hard thing for me to accept. It meant 3 more weeks on the PICC line, 3 more weeks of antibiotic. And I had to continually tell myself, if I can get 100% better and not end up like my sister, a quadriplegic in a nursing home who can't care for herself, I'm going to do the 3 weeks. So I had to continually pep talk myself into saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And each week, I would say, I could see improvements, and that got me through. And I would compare it to where I was, like a week before, a month ago, even in the beginning when I went into the hospital. That was huge to see that, yes, I was getting better. And as I began to share my story, people would say, oh, I have a friend who died from sepsis. Oh, I have a friend who lost their limbs from sepsis. And I'm thinking, wow.
Well, your sister had sepsis, didn't she?
She did. She did.
And she's a quadriplegic.
So I want to touch on this and ask you a question. You know, the last 2 or 3 people we've interviewed have had an experience with similar to what you're describing, and how fortunate are you that you have such a beautiful support system and the knowledge and education on the healthcare industry yourself. Is there any advice that you'd give to someone who might be going in not knowing what's wrong with them, so that they cannot lose limbs and and people to kind of protect themselves to going in not knowing?
Now, I'm a certified health and fitness coach, so I was doing all the right things. I was getting my fruits and vegetables, my water, I was exercising. I thought I was invincible, so to speak. Right. It's going to happen to me. And so I was really shocked that my immune system was down enough that I would get sick. Yeah. But the doctor reminded me that because you were so healthy, that was the reason you were able to recover so quickly and so well. And I would say diet is huge. Yeah. Doing all the right things, exercise, getting your fruits and vegetables, and getting nutrients in you. I lead a plant-based whole food diet, and that has been huge in getting my inflammation down. Yeah. I would say...
Marla, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that Marla is a very upbeat person, and she's a very high energy person. So this was totally different just in her personality than she normally is. I would try to give her pep talks too and have her look back at things. But this was devastating, not only physical, but also emotional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And you called me every week. And sometimes I couldn't talk to you because I was just so drained or I needed my sleep. But we pretty much talked every week. And that was huge. And
thank you for that. But Sometimes I call people every week and they don't want to talk to me, period. So
Aw.
I'm glad to hear that it might have helped. Go
It
ahead,
was-
Rachel.
So you talked a bit about the support that you had with you. I'm wondering, how would a patient advocate help along with a family, or how did it for you and for others?
I kind of am my own patient advocate, so I knew the steps I needed to take, but the things that were huge were talking. I think having a second set of ears to go with you to doctor's appointments, to talk to doctors, to follow up with doctors, to talk to the pharmacist. That's all huge, because home health nurse, there's all these people that come into play, the infectious disease doctor, the heart doctor, your PCP. I didn't know anything about Coumadin. I was placed on Coumadin. I didn't know what I could eat, what I couldn't eat. Now I'm switched to Xarelto until September, which I guess now I don't have to get any blood draws. And understanding all that,
Right.
reading up. So if you're not able to read directions and understand them, having someone do that, or come along you, it's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge.
Marla happens to be quite knowledgeable in the field. But to add to what she's saying, the patient advocate asks the questions to the professionals that people really don't even know what to ask.
Right.
And I think that's really important.
Right. And Jeff was my patient advocate. He came to see me in the hospital, and I had a roommate in the hospital that actually I shouldn't have had, but there were some things going on where she wasn't sleeping at night, therefore I wasn't sleeping at night. And he said, go to the nurse's station, ask them to move her. And I didn't even think of that. I said, you can do that? Yeah, she was very sick, and it was making my recovery not as good because I wasn't able to recover in the hospital with getting my sleep and functioning.
Hospitals are no place to get rest.
No, it wasn't. So, but it was good to have Jeff alongside me as a patient advocate, kind of like hitting the ball in the field, and so I could catch it, playing ball back and forth, bouncing things off of. He would ask me what my infectious disease doctor said and what tests they were doing on me and why.
Yeah,
That was important.
absolutely. And someone with no experience or understanding of how the medical field works, and throwing being sick confused on top of that, really kind of points to why a patient advocate is so helpful to navigate all of this new information that you don't know anything about, on top of being sick and not feeling well and being slow to process things.
And as you're healing, you get your bills from your insurance company.
Right.
And always, and I was in 2 states, so navigating that, making sure the company gets it to UPMC and back and forth. It's huge
Yeah,
to make it smoothly, because you don't want that stress
of course.
as you're, that gives you a setback.
As you're trying to recover, absolutely.
But
So
whether-
is there any place that people can find out more about you, more about the things that you do, and any other information you'd like to share with people and leave with people?
Yeah, they can reach me through Caregiver Champion, through Jeff. I have an email, Marla, Caregiver Champion Advocate.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's
Yep.
And people can find the website, caregiverchampionadvocate.com, as well.
I'd be happy to talk to anybody, even if you suspect you have UTI, which I never had one, so I didn't know what to expect. As I shared
It beeped out a bit. Did you say a UTI?
a UTI,
Okay.
yeah. As I share my story, I'm finding more and more people have UTIs, and I didn't know what one was because I never had it and what
Yeah.
the were. But as I shared it here, I found out my mom went to the doctor and she had a UTI, and she was having mental confusion, almost like dementia,
Right.
and frequent urination. And so as she began to get her antibiotic for her UTI, she became so much better. And as I share my story, more and more people are thinking, wow, I need to get tested. I'm having some of these symptoms, maybe not all of them. So it's important. I think that and sepsis are key, to getting better and feeling better.
I did my deep research, so I Googled UTI. And actually, there is such a thing called silent UTI.
It's there.
And you had a lot of the symptoms. The symptoms are extreme tiredness, back pain is very common, muscle aches, abdominal pain, shakiness, forgetfulness, and fevers.
Yeah, I would
And
say
so
all of
you
them.
had the back pain, but nobody ever noticed it. But what's important is that there is such a thing as a silent UTI,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
people don't recognize that.
Yeah. And if it's not taken care of, it leads to sepsis, which can travel very quickly into your bloodstream and to your other organs. Now, I was fortunate my kidneys weren't affected at all, and it was caught quickly, but many people aren't that fortunate. And then in such amount of time, they can be dead even.
And as part of my deep research, I looked up sepsis, and sepsis is actually the third leading cause of death in the United States.
Wow.
1.5 million cases of sepsis happen every year, and 250,000 Americans die from sepsis.
Wow.
So
Wow.
people really, and that's why I wanted Marla to just tell this story, because this is huge. If people will listen to what she said, hopefully there'll be more people that will go talk to their doctor about this and recognize the symptoms, because it happens very quickly. You switch from a UTI to sepsis almost, in a day.
Absolutely. I think the takeaway is to really take these symptoms seriously and to go see somebody and to get a patient advocate or get someone who can help you navigate some of this so it doesn't turn more serious quickly.
And I don't think age matters, because I've heard people much younger than myself have sepsis and not had the great outcome that I had. So I think we just need to be more in tune with our bodies, and if any sign of those things, get to the doctor right away.
Absolutely.
Important.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, Marla, and share your story.
Absolutely.
I think it's always helpful for people to share their story to help serve others. So thank you for doing that with us and for your great work with Caregiver Champion. People can connect with us, Caregiver Champion, at caregiverchampionadvocate.com. They can reach Marla there as well. And join us on Facebook for more Q&As like this, and our support group page, Working Caregivers, as well. Marla and Jeff, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
And
you.
until
Thanks,
next time.
Marla.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.